be on stage and you got to smile for the camera, like everything is fine. Watching the strongest woman I know deteriorate.
How did you deal with that?
A friend said to me, I wish I could take all your pain away. And I said, I don't, because
I'm Liz Hernandez.
It's Liz Hernandez.
Liz Hernandez, who's a radio star.
Dang, Liz, I'm so...
Liz, you're gorgeous.
And it was having to redefine what success was for me. Success was, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get the Grammy. Then you get the Grammy and you say, okay, well then I'll be happy when I have 3 Grammys. You never give yourself a chance to.
My life is coming to an end. Music and entertainment, it's no longer something I want to do. And I'm going to say goodbye. Liz, welcome to You Versus You.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you, but I'll be honest. You know, I've been shooting episodes the whole week. Last night, I started to feel really mentally and emotionally tired. And I was like, man, like, I don't know if I'm all the way there to have another podcast. And then I pulled up the document that they prepare with, you know, all your information and all the links of every conversation. Like, they do their great job. And I started to listen to your story. I started to specifically the losing of your mother. And I said, oh my God, the universe works in such an amazing place that her experience dealing with grief is something that might be just what I need to hear. And I think it's going to be a blessing to me and blessing to our audience. But I'll give you where I'm at. So I'm at a place in my career of full transition, right? Where I've started to accept that my time in music and entertainment as a full-time life experience it's no longer something I want to do. As you know, because you've been in this business as long as I have, there is these ideas and stories we tell ourselves around the value of success and hustle and time sacrifice. And in many ways, we sacrifice our own personal lives and all these things that come into chaos. That was the catalyst for what became You Versus You. And part of that internal work I've been experiencing with ayahuasca. Now, if you would have told Lex even 5 years ago, I would have been like, I'm never doing that crap in my life. You are out of your mind. But I started to dissect and figure out that my brain is very much a computer. And like a computer, there's things that I can do by myself. I can send an email. I can, write an Excel sheet. There's things that I need help on. There's things that I need to call my tech department at the company, and I relate that to this. Right? There's things where we are here for each other. We communicate. There's community that allows you to kind of see that. And the things that I could do by myself is like reading a book, listening to this podcast, or another podcast is really helpful. And then there's times we need to take our computers to the Genius Bar. There's times where we got to go to find a Google engineer because the thing just won't work. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling like I was at that stage where it's like, okay, I've done self-work, but now I need some Google engineer because I'm afraid of facing some of the things that I have to face. First times I did it, wonderful. Clarity. You Versus You came out of that. I was like the preacher of ayahuasca. Everybody should do ayahuasca. I was doing all this thing. This past weekend, I said, I'm going to do it. First day, I felt in my joy. I was like, this is great. Third day, so about 8 in the morning, I'm like, I'm going to walk outside. I'm going to go sit in the grass and ground myself, which has worked for me in my past experiences. It's actually been a great place to clear my thoughts. So I walk out thinking I'm in the happiest place. I take my shoes off. I ground. And then I take my hands and I put them on the grass. And the moment I do, I felt this level of gratitude, but a level of gratitude when you're saying goodbye. Mm. So it wasn't like, oh, thank you so much for everything. It was like, thank you for the life you've given me. And I'm sorry. And that moment triggered this warm feeling that put a thought of my mind of a disease. And then it took my mind into feeling the loss of life and saying, my life is coming to an end. This disease is going to take my life and I'm going to say goodbye. And it sat me in this pain for 3.5 hours of just the most outrageous crying, fear, trying to hold it together. And it was like, and these juxtapositions of emotions while having the image of saying goodbye to my daughter, knowing that I was not going to see her grow. I'm telling this story, which I don't normally say in the podcast, because it left me in a place of grief, right? And what the experience kept on saying and what the medicine kind of put was the acceptance of being okay with grief, and every part of that emotion, right? Of like letting go.
Sounds like the teacher of impermanence came to knock on your door.
Oh, it did. The interesting thing is that if I would have known that it was going to go there, I probably would have not done this whole week, right? I probably would have not forced myself to emotionally kind of carry. But I had everybody here, and getting back the story of like, this is all way more important. I have to do this. But when I started to read your story, I said, oh my God, her experience, what was just for me a dream or a moment of emotion that life wanted to have me experience in this journey that I'm in. You know, people say that ayahuasca is like the ego death medicine. You lived it in real life as you were losing your mom. How did you deal with that grief? What have you learned from it, and how have you settled with acceptance of that? I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time with that right now. I hope you're enjoying this episode of You Versus You. If these conversations are inspiring you and are bringing value to your life, please make sure to subscribe, join the community, and don't forget to share with anyone who you think needs to hear this. Thank you for supporting the show. Now let's get back to our episode. Yeah. I'm like in a place where I was just telling my partner, I think I need to cry. You know, it's like that moment that you're like,
yeah, then you cry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of the beauty of being human, is that we're all given these emotions to feel while we're here. When my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was like attending 1,000 funerals, because every day I was saying goodbye to a piece of her. And it was very difficult watching the strongest woman I know deteriorate and slowly die while still trying to hold on to who she is. I was dancing with grief every single day. And there was so much that I didn't know about grief. I didn't know the stages of grief yet. The way anger would show up. You know, looking back, I'm sort of embarrassed for how I handled things. Not, you know what? I shouldn't say that. Looking back, I can give myself compassion for the way I may have embarrassed myself to somebody else looking in.
I love the reframing of that. That was amazing.
You know, because at the time, I was at the so-called peak of my television career. I was at Access Hollywood for maybe a month and then my mom was diagnosed. And I had told my boss at the time, I'm going to leave. I'm going to step away and just care for my mom. And she was a mother, and she said, I don't think that's what your mom would want, and we're here to support you. So I stayed on, and I had all the pressure of being the newbie in television, prime time, and also caring for my mother. Like I said, in that incident, when something went awry, I imploded, which I never did. I was always professional, but it wasn't me. It was grief. And the anger was showing up to protect me. Grief is just, it is just such a tremendous teacher. It really is. We learn so much about ourselves. I just recently lost my dog of 11 and a half years. And a girlfriend said to me, I wish I could take all your pain away. And I said, I don't. I said, because this is what's stretching me. And I am building my empathy muscle and my compassion muscle. And I'm honoring the love that I shared with my little albondiga. That was his name, Meatball. And now when I see other dog owners, I think, oh my God, I send you love and I send you strength, because one day you're going to have to feel what I felt. And it is awful. But I have so much compassion in a different way that I wouldn't have had I not gone through that. Same thing with my mother. When I meet people that are caregivers or that their parent is struggling with an illness, My empathy is way different.
You talked about the stages of grief. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Trying to figure out what stage of grief I'm in right now.
Yeah, I feel that we are having serendipitous moments all the time, but I really tapped into that when I started meditating. And as life would have it, as my mother really began to, I don't even know the word, lose herself to the disease, I met the world's leading grief expert. His name is David Kessler. And this man took me under his wing and taught me the stages of grief. And it shows up as anger, as the woulda, coulda, shouldas. If only I had seen the signs earlier, maybe my mother could have somehow beat this disease. If I would have, left Access Hollywood earlier, maybe she would have lived a longer life. We do all this bargaining with death. I'd have to look them up. There's 5 stages. I haven't revisited them in a long time, but one of the ones that was really helpful for me, because Alzheimer's is a really long disease, is when my mom passed away. I remember calling David the very next day and I said to him, I feel okay. And David goes, he kind of not giggled, but kind of made one of those. He said, hold on to that, because he knew what was coming. I didn't know that I had been experiencing for the last 7.5 years that my mom was sick, what they call anticipatory grief. I had been grieving my mother for 7 years. Like I said, it was tiny funerals.
Oh,
So when
that
I
gives
would
me
sit in the
chills.
car and cry for an hour, that was me grieving her already. That was me grieving that knowing my mom was going to die. So for 7 years, I cried my eyes out. So when my mom passed, there was a sense of peace I felt the next day, because I knew, one, she was free and wasn't suffering. But there was just this sort of, the amount of pain I had felt on the actual day she died was so intense that I don't know if it's my soul was just giving me a chance to breathe, but also, like I said, I had been grieving the entire time. So learning what anticipatory grief was huge.
So I was thinking about it as I was listening to one of your podcasts with David. I hadn't actually talked about grief or mentioned the word grief in my life. Right? I've been blessed, and I lost my grandparents and things, but I had never really been put that word in my mind. And over the past week, it's come up like 20 times every day, because I was speaking to a spiritual leader, and he said, "You're in grief, and you're in grief of could have, should have, would have
Yeah.
idea of what you thought of your life and what you thought of the things that you are looking at, and finding center in acceptance." Because I remember as I was going through that journey, and I've had kidney stones 5 times, which is, for a guy, the worst pain. They say it's worth them, it's like comparable to birth, because it is this you can't control the way that your body feels like it's going to explode, and it's a crazy pain. And I've never felt the level of emotional pain I felt in those 3 hours. And when I woke up from that, there was also a moment of the power of accepting that we generally don't control anything.
That's another stage of grief, is denial. Is we want to deny what's happening. We don't want to accept reality, which just adds more pain onto our grief.
I'm going through all these things. I need to write these down.
The thing about it is we're grieving all the time, and we don't even realize it. One of the beautiful lessons, again, that I learned from David is when we lose a job, we're grieving the paycheck we didn't get. We're grieving the people we used to work with. During the pandemic, we grieved the lives we used to live, the being out in society, the being able to go to the grocery store, all of those things we had to grieve collectively. There's always something that's changing. That's what life is constant change. So we're constantly in grief. Maybe it's micro grief, but it's still grief.
Yeah.
It's like when you sell your house, right?
Yes.
You grieve
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is where I created memories. This was a part of me. Yeah.
I'm working on a documentary of Tommy Mottola, the big music executive, and someone in the documentary said, sometimes you think that it's the man, but it's actually the chair. And while I was in the process, it was really interesting to hear because it's like, so are people going to forget about me because I'm not in the chair of CEO of so and the public figure of this very successful company
I think
and the
you're
manager?
grieving the old version of you
Yeah.
that you're trying to hold on to.
100%.
Yeah. And I get
Yeah.
that because, even with the idea of you versus you, it can be very difficult because we want to hold on to who we think we were, whether it's whatever is the priority for us, right? Is it our idea of success? Is it age? Is it I'm more valuable when I'm in a relationship? So I grieve that part of myself. That's why I think it's so important to get clear on what do you value. For me, even thinking about when I left Access Hollywood, everyone's like, oh my God, how could you do that? And it was having to redefine what success was for me. Success was peace, not performance.
Do you feel that way today about it?
Yes. Yeah. Because I feel that it's already a part of me. That's also what I look for externally. I want people in my life who value peace more than they value performance, whether that's needing to perform because they care about what people think, whether that's performing that they're healed when they're not,
Yeah.
because we're always healing till the day we die.
Yeah, no one's arrived.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All we know is that we don't know.
Yeah.
And so,
I love that. I'm sorry. I love that.
and so, and you see people, they'll tell you how much therapy they've done, how much this, and then you don't see it applied to life. And I'm like, okay, that's performance.
Oh.
That's not real peace.
As you were dealing with the grief, as you were transitioning your career, that's like, I think this is perfect divine timing. I always say like a million things have to happen in divine order for two people to connect. And so I'm so intrigued because I feel like I'm a student right now. I'm like, I'm anxious to ask you all these questions. I'm like, teacher me, call me.
Well, all I know is that I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Which I love that.
I just feel like you just got to speak from the heart.
Yeah.
Because that's your truth.
Yeah. As you were dealing with the grief, as you were transitioning out as well of your job, was there certain mental frameworks and mantras that you were following that helped you on the daily journey?
Absolutely. I've been gratitude journaling for about 17 years. And that was instrumental in finding the silver lining in every situation. I wasn't using it to gloss over the pain, but you can hold grief and gratitude at the same time. So it was like, yes, my mom is dying, but my mom is also, she was diagnosed at 65. I've had my mom for 65 years and I was loved, or I am loved. That's the gratitude. So huge. Gratitude journaling it's pivotal in my life. There's not one day that I always say you have to tie it to a reward.
Yeah.
And I say, I'm never going to skip my coffee.
Yeah.
I love coffee. So I'm never going to skip gratitude journaling.
Yeah.
The two go hand in hand. Like I said, when my mom was diagnosed, I was only about a month or two at Access Hollywood. So, you've got to go be on stage and you've got to smile for the camera and you got to interact. Like everything is fine, but no one knows what's going on behind the scenes. So before I walked out in my glam and Spanx and 6-inch heels, I would sit and write an affirmation 10 times. I'd write it out 10 times to memorize it. And so, there's a lot of downtime when you're filming.
Yeah.
And so when the cameras would say, they'd yell, cut. And then I would repeat the affirmation like a mantra. And they were pretty wordy. So I was like, one day I'm going to create my own affirmations. And that's what I ended up doing. And so it's till this day, I gratitude journal, I say an affirmation every day, and I meditate. Those are my grounding tools.
I love that. So like you, I do gratitude journal every day. And I've been a big preacher of that because when I did get into it, one, I started to be able to look back sometimes in the day, especially when I write the night version of it, was like, wow, that actually happened today. Because sometimes we get so caught up with life that I read this book called The Uncharted Journey by Don Rosenthal, and he says, "You're so worried and interested about the experience that you forget the moment." And I felt like that about, I would say, the majority of my career in life. It's like, okay, we won a Grammy. Okay, tomorrow, what's the next thing? And you don't even like take a second to like sit down, drink a wine, say, oh my God, I just won a Grammy. My little self would be thrilled right now.
Destination addiction, they call that.
Yeah.
I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get the Grammy. Then you get the Grammy and you say, okay, well then I'll be happy when I have 3 Grammys. You never give yourself a chance to actually be happy.
That's a perfect segue to the conversation that I've been having with extremely successful people on the show. The kind of common struggle is, when is it enough? Because we've been programmed and told the story that it's never enough, that you want more and you need more, and you start going after everything and everything. And you're if I, and everything's an external feeling. Even I would say sometimes we could even put in that pocket spirituality and religion and mantras and things that we start doing almost like because it's an act. It's like it's a hiding of the fact that it's like, okay, if I do this more often, if I go to church more often, or if I buy more cars, or if I like, and in our business, what happens is people achieve this kind of rocket style of success that doesn't happen in a lot of other businesses. That also comes with all this applause and all this like celebrity status and all this like, and your whole life you grew up thinking, oh, the moment I'm a major artist, I'm going to be happy. Or the moment I'm a major executive or I'm on television, I'm going to be happy. And then you reach everything you have, like the pinnacle of what material success means. And you're like, oh shit.
I'm still the same person.
I'm still the same person. I'm still dealing with little Lex and little Liz and and you start going down this journey. And what I've found in the conversation with most guests is that story has been drilled. And even for myself, I said, as I was going through my journey, it was like, okay, well, at first, like I think most of us try to do is we try to make these radical changes in our minds. Like, oh, I learned that today. I'm going to apply it today in everything in my life, and I'm going to, like, all of a sudden, I'm a preacher of this, and I like
because we want that instant gratification. Our society is built that way. That's why we're over consumers. We think as soon as I have this, I'm going to be happy. Yeah. Oh, it filled my happiness for 5 minutes. Let me go buy something else, or let me sign up for this class, or let me sign up. But to actually do the work, you have everything you need. There's nothing that you actually need to purchase.
Part of that journey, at least for me, in accepting that and working on you versus you, and knowing that I'm actually okay. There's nothing in my life that's going to change. That's going to change the inner peace. But then again, because we try to be radical, it created a moment where you start being tough on yourself and you say, well, change this and change that. And then I started to understand, well, the gift God gave me is that I am an idea guy who is really good at executing. And there's a beautiful part of who I am that impacts people and creates beautiful things. The question is, from where is that coming, right? Is it a place from wholeness or a place of neediness?
Or a place of pressure.
Or a place of pressure. Well,
you think about the little Russian dolls.
Yeah.
You take them apart. There's always the little tiny one, the medium one, and then the big one. And that's why I always try to envision my healing is when I take them out, there's the adult Liz, there's the adolescent Liz, and then there's little Liz, my inner child.
Yeah.
And I've got to now take my grown Liz and care for each version of who I've been so I can heal when I was hurt in my adolescence. And then hopefully when I heal her and I can go heal little Liz. Yeah. Right? Because ultimately that's what we're craving. And that's how we show up in the world. I think about the pressure I still feel till this day to be productive. And if I'm not productive, then I'm either not succeeding or I'm lazy or, you fill in the blanks. And I think about what my little child feels. That's a lot of pressure to put on her. What if she's just okay as she is and she's allowed to rest and she's allowed to just feel loved just for being her?
Yeah.
Then she can be creative.
I love that because it's the practice of being still, right? One of the experiences as I've been going and doing my own internal work was that understanding of the idea that I have to be the driver of the car, the idea that I have to be the over controlling person in order to have safety. Once you start erasing that story, reshaping that, reframing that story to, no, I am completely whole. I generally don't control the outcome of anything. So the figuring out part is not my job. The sitting still and learning how to be still and not do, because even doing, in order to listen and then be courageous enough to act.
And also asking little Lex, why does he feel like he needs to be in control, and letting him
Yeah.
know that he is safe, right?
And that's been a lot of the work. It's that inner child. It's,
Yeah.
and,
Oh, that's
and
all. That is all the
you
work.
know, and finding those moments. Like I, for a long time in my career, no matter how much success and how much money I was accomplishing, I was like, I don't feel good enough. In one of the sessions that I was doing with my therapist, maybe 4 years ago, she said to me, "Can you remember a time in your youth where you felt like that, but like a specific time?" And I was like, "Okay, yes. In high school, this thing happened." Like, okay, great. Now I'll go back a couple more years. Can you figure out a time? Think of a specific moment and sit in that moment. I was like, okay, let me go back and here. She's like, try to go deeper than that. And then a moment came to mind that I had completely erased from my conscious of being in the car with my father. He had just remarried. I didn't kind of understand what was going on. And being around with my friends playing soccer and being like, hey, his wife, like, she's really kind of gotten fat. And they were like, huh? Oh, you don't know she's pregnant? Excuse me? Excuse me? And the tears and the level of that I felt that moment in the car as I like screamed at my dad. And I was like, wow, 40 years of my life, I dealt with this feeling and I had never identified it as that moment. And I had to, proactively do therapy to go back to that inner kid and say, hey, Lex.
What did
Okay.
that moment, what message did you receive in that moment?
I was being replaced,
That you weren't enough.
that I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And that hits me because, again, I had completely erased that from my conscious.
Yeah.
And reliving it, which is, part of what I'm learning. And I've always used it in business and in manifesting dreams, but I'm learning now how to apply it to my emotional life, is that there's a very big difference between thinking and feeling. When I manifest something in business, and I think most of us as successful people do, is we feel it.
Mm-hmm.
We just imagine yourself in the middle of Access Hollywood and housing. And I imagine myself like holding a Grammy and doing, like, I imagine it. I felt it. I smelt it. I know what the suit I was going to wear at the Grammys. I just have that. And it was this level of attraction that gave my mind, it made them believe it, because your mind can't tell between truth or not. It's just believing what the story you tell it. But in so many parts of our lives, the parts that affect us, like that moment, I felt it. My mind believed the story it told itself that you were not enough. But it wasn't just that it believed it because I said it out of my mouth, but I cried it. I felt it. Like that moment this weekend, I felt that pain as if it actually happened. I mean, I left out of there genuinely in fear and went to the doctor and I was like, yo, I need you to scan me. I want to make sure this wasn't like a prayer in ocean to something happen. But because I felt it, and what I'm learning about my own healing in my own experience is that the more I sit with the actual feeling
Mm-hmm.
of the thing and emotion I am trying to heal,
Mm-hmm.
the clearer and the more peace I can settle into accepting that moment for what it really was and not for what I thought it was. And that fighting the pressure and idea and the story that I fed myself for 23 years of career of do, instead of like settle into that feeling instead of trying to
That's the old, you
cover
gotta
it.
feel it to heal it.
You're just dropping bombs today.
That's
Feel it to
that's
heal
right.
it.
That's right from David Kessler.
Yeah.
But you know, I commend you on going back because you know a lot of times too. And here's what I'm learning is that we so badly because we're just curious human beings. We want to know when was I hurt and who hurt me. And I don't always think, at least for me, that that's. And I love that you found that moment. But for a lot of people, they can't find that moment. They've buried it. They know they've been hurt. And again, I can only speak for myself. What I've learned recently is that I know that there is a wound there. I don't know when it happened or how it happened, but I do know it's mine to heal. And one of the things that I've recently had to come face to face with is that my needs matter. And it was put to the test. You know, I thought I had really learned that, you know, through therapy and doing the work. And I was like, oh, I've really got a handle on this now. My needs matter. Then my dad calls me and he says, Mija, I want to meet you on this day. And, you know, are you available? I go and I look at it and I just tell him yes. You know, he's my dad. Sure, Papa, works fine. I go and I look at my calendar and I'm like, that's the first Friday of Memorial Day. And I'm seeing Kendrick Lamar that night. But that's not a good enough reason to tell my dad no. I don't matter. My needs don't matter. I don't want to disappoint the man I love. And I was having this self-awareness of, oh, here's life giving me the assignment.
Yeah.
Are you willing to take what you've learned that your needs matter and apply it to real life? And so I had to call my dad and say,
Papa, no go.
Yeah, I was like, hey, Dad, I said, this day that you want to meet, which we were going to meet all the way out in Riverside from LA, is like Memorial Day weekend. No. And I explained that to him and he says, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I don't want to sit in traffic that day either. And, you know, told him I had already had plans and no worries, let's do it another day. And it was like this wave of like, okay, I matter. And it was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And you have to think that was just a little assignment, but it was such a good test for me because can you imagine when I really I try to not have my dad suffer from Superman syndrome. I try not to put him on that pedestal, but we tend to do that in relationships or with people we really respect. And it becomes harder to say to them, here's what I need, because we think you matter more than me or you're somebody. So I shouldn't be able to say what is making me comfortable too. And so because I had just that little assignment with my father, I'm like, okay, I have to now pay attention to make sure that I'm honoring my needs.
Ishmael, my spiritual leader, always says, Lex, no one needs saving. Stop trying to be the savior. And I was like,
oh, were you in my therapy session?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's actually everything I worked through during Christmas was my extreme need to save because the wound was I couldn't save my mother. So therefore, I looked for people to save. And boy, that is not a fun test. Because I do believe this is all one big classroom for the soul.
Yeah.
And that we're all given assignments.
I agree. Is there a lesson that life has been trying to teach you that you haven't seemed to get, that you keep failing? Or not failing, but you're in the process all the time of repeating the class.
Let's see. I feel like I just worked through the I can't save anyone but myself phase. My needs matter phase. I think right now, I don't know what life is going to hand me next. I definitely was very aware of of impermanence. You know, my mom passed away November 2019 a month later, 2 months later, January, Kobe died. And that he felt like family. He lived here in LA. He was a part of us. And then the pandemic hit, was another thing to grieve. Then I lost a friend to cancer. It was like grief after grief after grief after, and it was just like, okay, you know, I learned a valuable lesson. And you would think I would learn this with my mother, but it felt like sort of the natural rhythm of life. Well, she's my mother, you know, disease happens, even though it was extremely painful. But Kobe was such a, this doesn't happen to people like him. And I thought, what a beautiful lesson of impermanence for all of us. Because you can have all the accolades, you can have the dream life, you can have the Oscar, you can have NBA championships, all of it, a beautiful family, and you're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Mm.
And we're not taught that in our society. We're not taught about impermanence and grief.
That's definitely, I think, the lesson I'm learning now. You know, that separation between saying that all the time and feeling. And I really feel like I wouldn't have let go. I would have continued to play around with the idea of all this pressure that I have is putting on me because I can handle it and I need to deliver and I need to deliver. And that moment really has made me reconsider this idea that tomorrow is truly promised. And then I say to myself, what do I actually want to do today?
Mm-hmm. Every single thing we have, material and emotional, from the people we love, is on borrowed time. And so we can work, and say, I don't have time for you. I don't have time to enjoy the things I've worked for. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And it's part of the assignment. It's part of the lesson.
You know, I talk about it in the show about lesson because one of the things that I've really started to implement in my life is, and I've started to see the results of that in my life as well. We've been taught to run away from the hard time, right? Like, and we've been taught to tell others, it's okay. The light at the end of the tunnel is coming. Like, this too shall pass. Like, this idea of, you know, something my mom and my dad always really taught me, were just like, just fight through it, but like, it's okay, it's gonna pass, and like, if it's hard, like, if someone makes you uncomfortable, cut them out of your life. If someone, like, all these things about like anything that feels hard, go. And so I became a really great architect, right? In the sense that I have creative vision, I can draw it, I can take it to be 100%. But once you build something as a business person, you then become a property manager, which was, for me, the difference between being an entrepreneur and becoming a CEO. Two very different, like, there's this level of excitement. I'm building something. Wow, the world knows it. all the growth. And then at some point, the growth stops. And now you got to maintain that. And historically in my life, that's when I was like, I'm out. Whether it was in relationships, whether it was in business, I was like,
It's starting to get difficult and I have to feel the difficulty.
And I was like, nope. See, something is a lot more exciting. I gotta go build another house. Sorry, I got a call. The way my phone works is I gotta go build a house. Yeah. And I was doing these bouncing arounds. And when I built the company and had to settle into this idea of being the CEO of the company, when I started to have to do the same thing in my life, thankfully, right at that time, in perfect divine order, I started learning about this idea of dancing in the fire, right? Dancing in the middle of the hardest times. And that the lesson of life is in that. The best, hardest parts of your life are mirrors in order for you to sit, like we were talking before we started filming, in order to sit with yourself and start loving yourself, start accepting yourself, but also sit in the difference between pain and suffering, which I heard you speak with David as well.
Yeah, well, you don't learn anything if you don't sit with the pain. Like I told you, when my girlfriend offered to take all the pain, she said, I wish I could take all the pain away. And I said, I don't.
Yeah.
Because then I skip over what I'm supposed to learn.
Yeah.
Shout out to David Kessler. He has this great, he said when they studied grief, they studied buffaloes. And when there's a storm coming, instead of running from the storm, the buffaloes run towards it because they know that if they run towards the storm, it'll minimize the amount of time they have to suffer.
Wow.
We as human beings tend to run from the storm. Yeah. So we spend our whole lives running from the pain always having it behind us. Or if we just go through it because it's the only way through it, then we would be more at peace.
Yeah. No, that's the moment I learned, I started applying, I started to see the changes to the way my mind started to perceive the situation, and the difference between, there was pain. You go to the gym, you want a six pack, it's gonna be painful. But the
also,
mental
isn't it a privilege to feel like,
beautiful.
I always say, this is the human experience. What a
Yeah.
privilege it is to feel all of our feelings. If you're happy all the time, you can't empathize with anyone. You lead with ego, not empathy.
Yeah, I was hearing David talk about that in the podcast, a life worth living, and I love that because it's another statement that we say and we've heard. It's like a quotable, and we love, as humans, we love Instagram quotables. I mean, like, it's just like, we love those.
Make this a clip.
It's like, exactly. But if you really sit for a second with that and like let it sink in, life worth living, and you're just like, all of it is what makes this place so amazing. And it makes every single day of our life so amazing. And the power of that. And that leads me to not only what you've created, but we're going to play this game. Talk to me about Wordaful and why, and the goal on it, and what it means and signifies in your life right now.
Storytelling has been in my DNA. Started in radio, took me to television. And I realized, while it was really exciting working in entertainment, what drove me, my passion, was connection with community through storytelling, because that's how I grew up. When my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, she began to lose her language. And she held on to her final phrases were, I love you and thank you. And I found that to be so fascinating because Dr. Emoto, he's a Japanese scientist who studied the power of words, said the two most powerful words in our language is love and gratitude. And the fact that my mom was holding on to love and gratitude meant so much to me, because I was going to lose the affirmations she would fill my cup up with, the I love yous, the you look so nice today, the you're so smart, I'm so proud of you. And I would need to reinforce that in myself. I don't like to martyr my mom. She wasn't perfect. And there was a lot of things that I had to recondition myself to understand that, I think about who I am now as an adult and how hard I can be on myself. And that allows me to have a lot of compassion for my mom, because I think about how hard she was probably on herself, given the wounds she had and the lack of tools that she had, and that she was just doing her best to raise me. And so here I was in one avenue of my life where, I'm all dolled up and talking about celebrity divorces and what they ate for breakfast. And I thought about, here's my mom losing her words and her language. What do I want my message out in the world to be? Because I thought about, what is the last conversation I'm going to have with my mom, and how powerful words are. They have the power to literally heal us or completely devastate us. It was just out of necessity. I was like, I'm going to get on YouTube and talk about the power of one word at a time. And maybe I'll just talk about what it means to me, how I'm misusing it, how it's playing out in my life. And then Wordaful turned into this confessional and sort of diary and place I felt connected. It was a really vulnerable place for me to be in, not only creating the series, but also sharing my mother's diagnosis, because my mother was a very private woman. But I also knew that it could become a bridge to help my community feel, if someone else was feeling scared, confused, hurt, that their parent was going through this too, I could give it a voice, I could give it resources, and I could give it a safe space. And that was really my introduction to Maria Shriver and David Kessler. And so, who then became voices for the Wordaful community as well. So Wordaful is words are powerful, mushed together. And that series turned into live events. And I remember the first time standing in front of an audience of about 350 people and seeing me sharing my story and how it impacted them and their emotion impacting me. I was opening up about what I had been through and my experiences, and I could see that people felt less alone. And the emotions that it invoked in them made me feel less alone. And then women started staying behind and wanting to share their stories. And that was it. That's when I knew. I was like, the power of storytelling. Yeah. We just all want to know that we matter and that we're seen. And, you know, I really pride myself on this brand not being, we want to be seen. We don't want to be sold to.
Yeah.
And that to me is one of the pillars of what makes this community so special.
I love that. You know, I always say sometimes the best example someone could have is the person that's right in front of you and the story and what that does to help you see things. Like, as I was saying at the beginning, today you've been the perfect mirror, the perfect, like, divine order of the universe saying, catch you know, like, and, and that's a beautiful thing, because sometimes we're not grateful for those moments because we see them as just like, okay, it's something I'm experiencing. But again, like, when you really think about how many things had to happen
that's
in
because
our lives,
but you know
to be
what?
here together.
But you have to give yourself credit. It's because you're open and you're awake to receive.
For
because some people might not see that and they're not ready to receive it yet. You know, and there is something so powerful about having the opportunity to share our stories and to feel like someone is really listening to us. You know, I used to say when we'd get together for these smaller groups with Wordaful women, having a room full of people share their stories, that is the thing that makes us feel the least alone, because it's, oh, they're going through that. Oh, they've been through what I've been through. Because when we're home alone and we're just ruminating in our house, we create this narrative like, I'm the only one going through this. I'm the only one. I'm so embarrassed, and these insecurities and this struggle and this heartbreak. And but when you're in a room full of people and everyone is sharing and you're hearing different voices, there is a lot of power in that.
Yeah. Well, that takes me to, well, one, like we were sharing your gratitude journal, which I really appreciate this because so funny, another honest story.
Yes.
I used to write on mine all the time. And then I started to go through an experience in a relationship I was in where I felt like my journal was not safe.
Oh,
and so I was like, I would hide it under my clothes and like shove it in there. And then I found the app and I started doing it in the app as consistent as doing it. But I love to write. Like when I read a book, I like to get the actual physical book because I'm a highlighter king. Okay. I like highlight and come back and read it again and again. And so actually this is beautiful. And like I was telling you, the color evoked some emotion in my life because at the beginning of my dreams, this color was meaningful to how I saw the world and creativity. I always used to say, I painted my childhood room this color.
Wow.
When I first got to LA, I never forget the time when me and my business partner, we got here and we had this idea about LA, that it was going to be this great place where we were going to make our dreams, which happened. And then we're faced with the reality of apartments in LA that don't have air conditioning and don't got fridges. And we were like, I remember after the first day of looking at real estate that we can actually afford, we were like, I think we're going to go back to Miami. I got fridge and air conditioning inclusive of the price. What is going on here? But when we finally, we put our money together and we found our first apartment, and we didn't actually have money to paint. We wanted to paint the living room. I wanted to paint the whole living room, like the main wall, red. And we didn't have money, so we bought a little pint of paint and we painted one wall. And in that wall, 21 years ago, we wrote the name of our company and didn't use that name of that company until 5 years ago. Wow. And we wrote exactly how we wanted it to be. Like we had this idea about how digital media would work, before there was Hulu and anything. And it was like 5 or 4 different business ideas were written in that journal, that when we moved out and we started to have music success and he moved in his own place and lived, kind of took it down and we actually never looked back. And about a year ago, we started to look at the things we've done and we were like, oh my God, do you remember we had that in that wall?
Isn't it wild?
Do you remember we had that? And remember that and that? And we were like, dude, we were geniuses. We just had it in our wall, you know? But it was all in that. So
Well, it just shows you the power of manifestation
Yeah.
too, of the set the intention, release it. And we don't know when it's going to show up. But
Yeah.
if you believe in it enough, I would love for you to just open to a random page and see what, set the intention. What affirmation do you need right now?
Okay. Comfort. I am safe, loved, and at peace. My gentle thoughts and compassionate words bring me the comfort that I need.
There it is. You said you were in your feelings.
This.
And, you know, I want to say too, there's a huge difference between gratitude journaling on a tablet or in your phone versus writing it. It is so powerful. And there's tons of research that backs this up. There's something about the connection of our hand and our body to our mind that makes it that much more powerful. And it's not just about giving gratitude for what has happened. You can also give gratitude for what's to come. It's one of my favorites.
I love that. And then you brought me this wonderful, the game, No Room for Small Talk. And it's, again, serendipitous about it. So every time I get together with friends,
Yes.
I always say, we don't actually know each other till we really ask the right questions. And so I have these moments where I just always ask these questions. What are you afraid of? And start sparking these conversations of friends that I've known 15 years. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I didn't know that this has happened to you. And so I love this.
Yeah.
And we're going to play it.
Yes. I have a girlfriend and we joke because as soon as she sits down on my couch, we don't know how to do small talk. We go straight
Into the deep.
into the, how's your heart today? Let me tell you about this pain I'm feeling.
Yeah.
We don't know how to say, so, you know, how was your day at work? No,
Yeah.
We dive.
So you watched that TV show? Nope.
No.
Going straight to the depth.
We skip the small talk. We go straight to the heart. Yeah, which I love.
I love that. That's, again, great mirror. All right. So walk me through playing the game. So
Okay,
I'm guessing.
okay.
Yeah, you can move the
Can
mic.
I set it up for you?
Yes. Okay. So we have acceptance, emotions, understand, intimacy, memories, and quality
And by the way, they all change after so many.
of the game playing.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. So we're each picking one. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, you're going to roll. You got yellow.
Oh, nervous.
Easy one.
Okay.
Name 3 attractive qualities in another person.
The way they view the world, themselves, and others is highly important to being attractive to me. I would say those are the 3 things, like, you know, that I would feel define an attraction for me in every level of my core, which is how I have to feel things to feel enticed enough to move.
Yeah.
So I would say those 3. Ooh, acceptance. Name one thing you would not change about yourself.
My willingness to learn. I wouldn't change that about myself because just having figured out that my words can change my life, that grief can change my life, willing to dig deep and understand why, the constant why, and staying curious, that has led me down so many beautiful paths that I want to learn more.
I can relate. I love that.
One more round?
Yeah, let's do one more round. I'm enjoying this. I can figure out when to cut.
Understand.
Understand.
Ooh. Is there something you struggle to understand about yourself?
Ugh. Okay,
Cut.
never mind.
We're gonna need to lay him down on the couch.
Is there? Oh my God. I think for such a long time I've hidden behind the ideas of what I'm supposed to be,
Mm,
that I'm in the journey of understanding who I really am.
the unconditioning. I relate to that so much. Oh, shit.
This game is amazing, by the way. You better be by. Oh, you gotta do it.
I
Sorry,
would normally make you go deeper, but for time's sake, I would say, tell me more.
Emotions. All right, here we go. What was the last thing that made you cry?
Oh, I know this one. I lost my dog about it's a little bit of a month, probably been about a month and a half. I still cry every day. Yeah, I had this, oh, it's gonna make me cry now. I had this realization yesterday as I was cutting strawberries. And when the knife would hit the cutting board, my little French bulldog, Albondiga, he would run over. And to him, that signaled, those are for me. My mom's cutting strawberries for me. And I would only give him so many because, you don't want to spoil your dog or you don't want to teach them bad habits. And I would always do the command like sit, and then I'd give it to him. And the other day when I was cutting strawberries and he wasn't there, I was thinking, I wish I could give him all the strawberries. And I realized that's so important because all he left behind was love, right? And so that's all I want to leave behind is love, of making people feel loved. Yeah. So now today you can say, new day. Yeah. I cry for him every day. Yeah.
Mm.
And that is the grief. One thing that I, again, loved about David mentoring me was as long as we love, we're going to grieve. And so the tears are a testament to the deep, deep love. Yeah. I don't run from it.
I've learned so much from your courage. In our business, you're accustomed to experiencing someone having to act a certain way when you're in the space and perform. And I loved our space of intimacy because I think we've been able to connect and be, but I just honor you for that courage that you have to face these moments of loss and grief, and to also have this beautiful sense of self that you have that has been a great mirror and lesson to me today. I promise you that I can tell you that you've filled my cup today.
I'm so grateful.
In every sense of the word. And the show, we always have an exercise that I think is so fitting because it's almost like it was perfectly, it was almost written by you and copied by me. But the power of words and what that does to our internal, what that does to our mind. And so the exercise is, Liz, what's one word or one phrase that your internal part has to hear today that will change how you perceive the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of your time?
Gratitude. Constantly staying in gratitude. I'm grateful for this moment with you. I'm grateful to share my story. I'm grateful for the grief, as painful as it is, because it's just a constant reminder that I was able to place my love somewhere and that I received love, that I received love. And just having breath in my lungs, that's, to me, it's just constant gratitude.
Love that. Thank you so much for being on You Versus You. I'm excited that it's the start of a new friendship, and I look forward to sharing a lot more conversations and thoughts and ideas as we both go down this beautiful journey of a life worth living.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I love to learn, and I have a billion more questions.
We have to play this game longer.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you're a real pleasure, and thank you for being a beautiful spirit and soul, and for sharing your space with me. Deeply grateful.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to You Versus You. Please subscribe, like, and share as we build this community and we help each other to live the life of our dreams.